All right, that's that sound. That's that sound. You're in the championship rounds with King Amin of Essex 1, moderated by Jay, where we talk about boxing news and definitely everything in between. This is season 2, round 12. What's going on, my brother?
Hey, man, this is it. This is the end of the fight. I'm spitting in that bucket. I ain't even giving a fuck who's in the audience. You got to leave it all in the ring. Round 12. This is, you come to the end of the fight. Round 12 could be that swing round. So here we are trying to keep that momentum. We want to steal this fight, man. We want to close the show.
Yeah, it's been a little minute. We had a little bit of a break. But we just talking a little bit off the air about how, kind of the shows went kind of fast. So definitely want to thank everybody for the support. Appreciate, continue to like and share the videos, and, definitely appreciative of that. You know what I'm saying? You want to promote yourself before we get into the articles?
Oh, for sure. As always, don't forget to check me out, King Amin of Essex 1 on Instagram for all your boxing news and notes. Also, I've added to this mix King Amin on Twitter. The Twitter sphere is popping with boxing news, and I'm in there. Please go check me out. Also, can't forget the Boxing Voice TBV podcast. All right. That's the foundation where I made my bones. I still call it home. Thursday nights, the flagship. Of course, Sundays, the recap of all the action. So check me out. And yeah, man, that's where I'm at.
That's what's up. So let's get into it. Because the people want to hear what you got to say. So the first article comes from ESPN.com. Listen, we got Jerron Boots Ennis versus Castillo Clayton. Boots Ennis, from Philly, right?
Yes, sir. North Philly, not just Philly, North Philly.
All right, North Philly, 28-0, 26 KOs, 2 knockouts in 2021, I believe. Pull me back if I'm wrong. And then Castillo Clayton, 19-0-1, 12 KOs. So again, how this article is set up, Ennis and Clayton set for IBF title, eliminator. Boots Ennis is inching closer to his title shot. So what did you think? Ennis and Castillo, they reached the deal, for this eliminator match, this welterweight title eliminator in spring 2022. So I got a few questions about, specifically about these two guys, but what did you think about this? Is it something you expected? And,
It's an appropriate fight, and it was much anticipated, seeing as how Keith Thurman was ducking Boots. And I got to start it off with that. And think about this. I did an interview with the Honorable George Hansen out of Philly. You know what I'm saying? So, that's my OG, you know what I'm saying? My uncle them, right? So I'm plugged in to Philly. So I already knew, him and I talked about this almost 2 years ago. Boots was waiting, itching, scratching, digging, praying, clawing, hoping like, hey, I'm nobody. Shit, then put me in there with Keith Thurman. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love that fight. This was, I think after the Pacquiao fight, right? So Boots Ennis now has come into our view because he fought Sergey Lipinets, who he shares as a common opponent with Castillo Clayton, except for the fact Castillo went to a draw with Lipinets where Boots got him up out of there.
Right.
So when you have that common opponent and the distinction of the wins, that's what you want to do. Talk about comparisons and distinction, right? Boots came in the game talking about he's as good as Terrence Crawford. Well, in that other fight that you're talking about, that was against Thomas Delorme. I think Bud might have got him up out of there the 5th round, 6th round tops. Boots got him up out of there the 1st round.
Okay.
So, one of the things in any measure, when you need to compare yourself, like, who's the best MCs, Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas. And even if Jay-Z wasn't at that point, you throw yourself in the conversation. When Lil Wayne was trying to greatest rapper alive, like, you have to. T.I., king, I'm the king of the South when ain't nobody want to be the. So this is what Boots is doing, and I think you have to do that, especially with a division so deep as welterweight. The other side of that, you got Castillo Clayton. Since we're using hip-hop analogies, He's like Saigon. You know how I feel about Saigon, right? Like he's the greatest story never told. And in some respects, with his material as an artist, he never got to tell his story with some of the, the same cats of his era, even though he was running congruent with like the 50 Cents and a lot of, you know what I mean? So, he's fighting out of Canada. Again, I'm plugged into Scotia Gang. Shout out to my guy, Jeff Gorley. Shout out to Ryan Rozicki, right? Shout out to Pat Stay, battle rapper out of Novas. I'm plugged in Scotia Gang. So I know about Castillo. I think he might have Haitian lineage or something. So, you know what I mean? Like this is a great fight. He ain't no square. You get what I'm saying? Again, I think if people were questioning, who Boots is, after he inserted himself in the conversation, number one, and number two, after he handled common opponents with guys that's already being considered number one, Bud Crawford, it was a great fight to be made. And it's, a great way for either fighter to position, because this ain't necessarily a gimme for Boots, even though a lot of people have Boots coming out. This is not a gimme for Boots because Castillo is a tough competitor.
So that builds on my next question. So ESPN has Boots ranked number 3. It has Castillo Clayton ranked number 6. So you think those are accurate rankings, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you let Sean Porter tell you, he'll say Boots is overrated, right? Sean Porter was recently retired by Bud Crawford, and he said Boots is overrated. I totally disagree. But I could understand why he would say that, because he comes from, quote unquote, that side of the street. That's the same thing they did to Bud Crawford. They said he ain't fight nobody. Who is he? He ain't fight nobody. Oh, he's over there. Yada, yada, yada. So now you get another guy that you scared of. What do? Oh, he ain't fight nobody. And look, Sean is just like, that's how your muscle memory so quick. He retired. He ain't even got to fight the nigga. He got the built-in excuse. Oh, he's nobody. So if the opportunity presented, now the thing, I say that tongue in cheek because that's the one thing Sean Porter has done. He's made his career fighting whoever ain't nobody else want to fight, as evidenced by the fight with Bud Crawford, right? But still, I mean, when a guy is insisting that he's worthy and he's not getting the fights because we know that there's boxing politics, it's just not cool for another fighter to say he's overrated. Tell him he need to go make his bones. Tell him he need to go get his money up. You know what I'm saying? Like they told Pac, get your money right before you go to war. But I to call somebody overrated when you understand the politics of boxing, I think that's not cool. But hey, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. The rankings are accurate, though. I will say that. Is it because really when you talk about Castillo, if anybody thinks anything of Lipinets, depending on who you ask, he fought to a draw with Lipinets. And I think, again, boxing politics, they owe him a fight. Because they either thought Lipinets was going to win or he was going to be spectacular. So, it was a draw. Lipinets went on to get stopped by Boots. So it's like, oh, you know what? Shit, the guy that you had a problem with is somebody that knocked him out. Y'all should fight. That is a rare instance of logic working out in boxing, to where either one of these guys could position themselves to be, in a great position. Definitely, since the belts are held up, most of the welterweight belts, other than the WBO, are held up on the PBC side of things, that side of the street, if you will, even though Terrence Crawford's a free agent now. Either one of those guys are going to become a mandatory. And the funny thing is, I'm curious to see, do they take, it's like pick your poison. Do you think, because then the Canadian guy that you may or may not think much of, right? If he beats Boots, then you may say, yo, all right, boom. I told you he was overrated, but then, you kind of can't do that. You have to say that maybe Castillo is that good and he just ain't been crowned yet. You know what I'm saying? Again,
so what do you think Boots would have to do well to win?
He got to stop him. I mean, and it's crazy, I'm the first one that say you don't have to knock nobody out, but he definitely can't fight Castillo Clayton to a draw, because Castillo Clayton don't need no draw. He can't have the one opportunity you fought or the second opportunity you fought stateside against stateside competition, even if the other guy was Russian or Lithuanian, like you fought to a draw. They're not going to bring you back. So he either has to show that, you know, he can bring something different and kind of, you know, even if he lose, he fought tough and he made it competitive. He pushed Boots to the limit, but Boots just flattened him. Because if Boots just come in there and just batter him, you know, the sad thing is they're going to say, see, because I told y'all Castillo Clayton wasn't shit from the door. He fought Lipinets to a draw.
Right.
He still didn't fight nobody. He fought, you know, his homie that was ranked number 6, but he only did that to hold his position at number 3. You know, but that's such a narrow way of looking at it, because the honest way of looking at it is say, well, I think we checked that box because we know that he flattened Lipinets, and if we had any questions, he did whatever he did to Clayton, and now he's got to be waiting for one of those top names. And lets me bring it back to Thurman because he's the most available other than Crawford. But no, we want to know why Crawford's not available? Unification. You can't risk losing a title to Boots so Boots can go and unify with Spence. This is what he worked his freedom for with Top Rank, to have this belt, to be undefeated, like Canelo did, to have this belt, to be undefeated, and his leverage is, I'm undefeated, y'all know my name, and unified. To be the man, to beat the man, I'm the guy. So he ain't going to risk that fighting Boots, and he shouldn't. Right. You know, but the other side to that is, you know, out of those guys, whenever they unify, you'll have a Boots waiting, right? Because you're going to have Spence and Ugas sorting out that WBA title. So can you imagine if Ugas and Spence and then Ugas walk away with them belts? You know what I'm saying? Then it's no longer this whole PBC's other side of the street, because you have Ugas, a guy that plays more like a free agent because his circumstances has always been facing adversity. He may be more willing to give a guy like Terrence Crawford an opportunity and say, look, I can relate. They're not giving you no opportunities, and you got a name, they ain't giving me none, and I have less of it, but let's do that, you know? So yeah, man, that's why I say the welterweight division is the nexus of the boxing universe. It's so many elements and layers. It's like an onion, bro.
Hey, man, listen, man, that's anybody who wasn't interested in that joint, they're gonna be following it now. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna be an interesting one to follow. So, the next joint we have ESPN.com. Definitely an interesting topic for me. So we got Lomachenko likely up next for George Kambosos. You know, we know Kambosos had the split decision over Teofimo Lopez in November. ESPN called it the upset of the year. So listen, Lomachenko obviously coming off wins, I believe, December and June. But they also, in this article, they was talking about how Devin Haney was kind of also in competition. So first, which one do you think is the better fight? And then which one do you think is going to happen?
Jay, the Haney fight is the fight that needs to happen, because the sad reality is that Teofimo Lopez, he ducked Devin Haney, and he walked around promoting himself as the unified or the undisputed champion, but he never had the green belt. He never had the WBC. He beat Lomachenko, and Lomachenko had a franchise version that he was granted so he can fight Teofimo, because they viewed that as the bigger fight, leaving Devin Haney out in the cold. That's the reason when I covered last week's action that just passed, 2 of Devin Haney's former opponents were fighting in Russia. You get what I'm saying? Like, his opponents still go on and fighting and being competitive. And what happens is, if Kambosos and Lomachenko is made, we should have called this episode DuckTales, except for fair fucking copyright infringement. Because that means fucking Teofimo ducking Haney, Lomo ducking Haney, and Kambosos ducking Haney. Huey, Louie, and Dewey, the 3 fucking DuckTales. And Bob Arum, old ass, is Scrooge fucking McDuck. Ain't that a bitch, man? There's no reason why Devin Haney should not be getting his opportunity. 3 fucking ducks if they make this Lomachenko fight. Will it be a good fight? Sure. But I think listen, Lomachenko's on a tear right now. I think he'll beat up his mother in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Because he had no rematch clause and he had to fight his way back to this point.
Right.
He's done so, rightfully so. So I can't deny it, but I do got to say, but the only reason why you had to do all this is because you ducked Devin Haney. Like you can't have ducked Devin Haney. You know what I'm saying? Like that's, you know. So again, it's the fucking Huey, Louie, and Dewey, the three fucking ducks if that Lomachenko fight go down.
So again, so it comes my next question. So they got George Kambosos. I believe he's ranked #1 by ESPN. So how you feel about that?
And I fuck with George Kambosos. You want to know why? Because he was the underdog. But what he did, you know what he did? He done did, listen, I got to go in. I'm going to go in on him. He did like the new bitch in high school. You come to high school, just because nobody don't know you, you fly. But stay there for a couple of weeks. We get to know your tendencies. We know you insecure. You keep your jacket on all day. We watch your clothing rotation. You don't have the best of what you think. So now we watching you. And then somebody told me your breath stink. So it's things like, yo, you came in so high class, and we all gave you the shine. We look past all these other chicks that we went to elementary school with, all these chicks on the grind, taking out their retainers, getting their hair done, and all eyes was on you because you was new in school. But guess what? You're old now. And so long way, long walk. Kambosos, the act is old now. We celebrated him for winning and being the underdog. Fuck all that. Be a man. Fight Haney. The winner of that can fight Loma. Loma deserves that fight. He beat the shit out of Nakatani and he whooped Comey's ass. He deserves it, man. He deserves it. But not right now. Kambosos don't need to do that bull. Like that's some straight sucker shit. Oh, I deserve to have a fight at home. Yeah, sure you do, motherfucker. Have it against Devin Haney then.
Right.
But again, what people deserve and what happens in boxing sometimes are fucking a mile apart, man.
So if this fight gets made, as it seems like it probably will, who do you think you would be picking as a winner after that, coming out of that one?
Yo, I don't know. I gotta go with Loma. You know what I'm saying? Something tells me you don't want to make Kambosos the underdog twice, but you don't want to go against Lomachenko. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. Just it's something different about his intentions, the way he's boxing. He's always had these skills. Even, when people's, talk about, he's because he got so bad intentions. He was trying to tell the ref, I'm not trying to hurt this man, but I'm going to keep beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Put Kambosos in front of him, and I think his intentions will beat the shit out of Kambosos. Now, Kambosos is a tough guy. But it's kind of like, not to put that on him, but yeah, I seen Rahman knock Lennox Lewis out, but in that second fight, it was not the same Hasim Rahman. He silk sheets and a comfortable wardrobe. Same thing with Buster Douglas. You know what I'm saying? When he fought Holyfield, it was not the same Buster Douglas that beat Mike Tyson. So when you're no longer the underdog, because I don't think it's an automatic that people will pick Loma. I think some people, might not think much of Loma, except, hardcore fans that believe in triumphing adversity and resiliency. Some people may just say, nah, man, he's done, but it's definitely a great fight. I mean, this is a great fight. It's just very sad that Devin Haney does not have a seat at the table. I mean, at the very least, again, boxing is already fucked up. Give him some step aside money. Get that man $3 million. Give him $3 million in the Cadillac and tell him to beat it. But don't just fucking have him sitting on the side. It's just terrible, man. It's terrible.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I mean, I want to see Loma, you know what I mean? But they got Devin Haney out in the cold, bro. All right, so let's go to one of the more well, not more interesting, but something that's been in the news the last couple of days. So the Charlo fight is postponed. Brian Castano got injured. So, just a quick recap. Jamel Charlo 34 1-1. Brian Castano 17. Oh, I don't want to get that.
Oh, I think it's 17-0-1, right?
Yeah. Okay. Man, my writing is messed up. 17-0-1. So listen, I had a couple of questions about this, right? We'll get into it, but Castano's WBO champion, Charlo WBC, WBA, IBF, junior middleweight champion. So, a lot of people have certain feelings about this fight. We know they met in July. A lot of people felt like, some people felt like Castano deserved the decision, but the fight was a draw. Some of the cards looked kind of crazy, especially one of the judges in particular that, some people had opinions on. So first of all, what did you think? Because, Charlo was kind of taking digs at him, kind of suggesting that he wanted to see the doctor's note and that, and the whole war mode thing. So what did you think? Is that cap or what? And then we'll kind of talk about my other questions.
What I can say is I've never heard any specific accusations ever about Brian Castano and any performance-enhancing drugs, anything along those lines.
All right.
However, what I know about boxing and what I understand about boxing is that these timelines, fighters have to use their knowledge of timelines to at least take a shot in the dark to see whether or not their opponent is playing fair. So, for example, even with the whole thing with Shakur and Oscar Valdez, you had the WBC commissioner, the president of the WBC, saying that, oh no, it was something that he was taking out of competition. Mauricio Suleiman said this. He said this was out of competition and he took it in August, but the fight wasn't until he took it in July, but the fight was whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an excuse. It was an excuse by the governing body, the sanctioning body for that particular belt. And what's their interest? They take a 25% out of the purse fee or whatever the fuck, right? So what I'm saying is they put all these different perspectives in place because unless you submit to the testing, like the I think it's the VADA testing,
right?
There's ways around it. And so if he pulls a bicep injury, but it's minor, but it's healing for 10 days, some fighters will tell you right, he might be trying to cycle off. Then there's an interesting fact, and again, I don't know that Brian Castano is involved, but you do have Victor Conte still lurking in the shadows of the boxing realm. That don't mean he's doing nothing wrong. Right. But you know what I'm saying? Like, not the rapper Rose, the real Rick Ross. You know what I'm saying? Richard Ross, right? From Los Angeles, California. He's selling weed legally because he's taking those transferable skills.
Right.
Why wouldn't he? So I wouldn't be surprised, man, if somehow or another people hear whispers, people see things, that are, peculiar to them, and they say, something, that's some bullshit. I heard that's what they do over there. I heard these guys do this, and they'll fake an injury in 10 days. The motherfuckers be on laxatives going crazy trying to get it out their system, all kinds of shit. Now, how would he know that? I don't know, but it seems like a pretty broad yet specific accusation because he didn't accuse him, but he just said basically like, I know your tricks. I know that these tricks are in play, but I don't give a fuck what you do. We on your ass. It just seemed like a warning, like ain't shit you could do. We on your ass. Like, don't play with me. Ain't shit you could do. And it almost sounds like he thought to himself, is that why the first fight was even close? And I was hitting you with everything but the fucking kitchen sink and you wasn't moving? Is that what it is to me? You're a fucking drug cheat? So sometimes it could have been, a motivating thing to where he thought about it and say, somebody told me this and that. Is it true? I got no clue. But the truth is stranger than fiction in the world of boxing. So I would not be surprised.
All right. Listen, I just wanted to know your opinion on this, right? Just in general, like how important or like how rare are these like undisputed is it to be the undisputed champion, like to either currently to your current kind of status, legacy, history, how important is it?
Bro, that's a great question. We're going to touch on that now and then moving forward, bro, because I'll use the analogy I used before. It's like a degree. Like if you have a degree, but you can't do nothing with it, you're an educated person, but you ain't that smart because you don't even know how to apply what you learned. Some fighters can have a title, like the guy Makabu, that was allegedly a cruiserweight in the Canelo sweepstakes, or even to give you a guy like Trevor Bryan with the WBA belt. And sometimes a guy will have a belt, or even Gary Russell Jr. You'll have a belt and you're a champion because you won the belt, but you're the champion because you rarely defended, or who you defended against. It's in like spectacle fashion. You know what I'm saying? Right. So you're the champ for 2 and 3 years, or you defended it, even to a degree. That's why it took Triple G 22, defenses, or so 21 defenses, because you had to substantiate a high amount given the level of competition if you're going to stay in one division. So what does that mean about belts unified? Because if you got 2 or 3 degrees and you hustling with them shits, you look more fucking brilliant. You know what I'm saying? You could have a master's degree and licensures and look more brilliant than a motherfucker with a PhD and he ain't doing shit with it.
Right.
So if you're able to have these belts and you're unified and you like, hey, you know what? I'm challenging guys from the UK. I'm challenging up and coming fighters, because I believe I could take that belt off for him. So even Canelo moving up and taking, Caleb Plant's belt, now he's unified, Clarissa Shields. Like, I want to be unified in more than one division. It's what gave, Amir Khan, Danny Garcia, and Bub Crawford their cachet at 140 pounds. They were all unified champions. Zab Judah, undisputed. And then a lot of times it means one or two things. Either you went around collecting them belts like Thanos with them rings, or it was one guy that had it that whooped everybody's ass and you whooped his ass.
Right.
And then on top of that, you defended it. You defended it. All the belts at once. So every fight you went in, like Lennox Lewis, undisputed heavyweight champion. I got all them shits. And if you win, you get all of these. But if you lose, I'm cool. It ain't like, I'm only fighting them for the WBA and I get to leave with 3. And that's the mind and the mark of a champion. Some motherfuckers get in there and say, nah, you know what? Because if I lose, now get it. If you try to make money, I get it, right? Yo, I'm only putting up the WBA because I want to be able to, WBC. I could, you flip flamming, but then it's like, okay, cool. But are you gonna say, nah? Put me in the ring with that nigga, all the belts on the line, give me a big check, and when I flatten his ass, give me the next nigga. You know what I'm saying? However you choose to approach it. But that's why the belts and being undisputed means something, because you typically had, like, and I hate to be morbid about it. Remember that Averex body count from DC?
Yeah.
Because you had to get that Averex off of somebody's back. That's why it meant more to them. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I can dig it. All right, man. Listen, man. That's gonna be a good one. I was waiting for that one. You know what I mean? But Charlo, man, at least he made it interesting this weekend,
Yeah, man.
So our last article for the week comes from boxingscene.com. This is a teachable moment, taming the lion. Our slimback, McDonovic, I'm sorry.
Magdamov. Yeah.
Magdamov Lion, man, versus Maurice Wake, former world title holder. Listen, this is a pretty interesting article, man. They was kind of talking. I had a few specific questions about this fight, but how did you see it unfolding? What for you was most impressive? And then we kind of talk about the knockdowns.
Hey, man, resiliency. And let's just talk about the skill, because you see a lot of big fighters, heavyweight division, nowadays. And Tyson Fury, I might say he might be one of the pioneers of that, really being this fucking whale that can just float like a butterfly. You know what I'm saying? And not everybody's that graceful, and it's not these body perfect individuals, but it's guys that's, you know what I'm saying, they can box, they can show some swiftness, some quickness, and some skill. So that was the first thing I was impressed with, is that this guy, and typically the Eastern European fighters, they have a lot of Olympic pedigree. So I was very impressed with his skills. We've heard about his knockout power, those have been kind of watching him. So yeah, I was impressed with the way he was trying to put together those knockout punches.
All right, so I guess there was a big moment in the sixth round, where he had the knockdown. So were you surprised by that? I know you talked about the power, so just kind of, were you surprised by that? And what do you think is kind of in the future for the Lion?
We'll see. One thing, like the article said, Walk had never been stopped. And
Okay.
even though he was 42, I mean, look, you got Derek Chisora, I mean, a warrior is a warrior, and when you're bringing a fighter along, there's a fighter out of the UK, MJ Hall. I think he's like 13 and 51.
Okay.
But
Bam.
that's the guy that you want, because he's
right.
going to fight. You know what I'm saying? And it don't matter, like 51 losses is nothing. He's in every fight.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when you got a young fighter, if he can't beat MJ Hall, you know what I'm saying, or we bring MJ Hall in for sparring. So my point is, a heavyweight fighter like this guy, you know what I'm saying? Sixth round, I'm watching him, and I'm watching him against Wok, a big, tough dude, never been stopped. I'm like, all right, he's probably going to go the distance, because a lot of trainers bring in these types of guys and say, listen, I hope he don't beat my young bull, but I want him to go rounds.
Right.
You don't want your guy to face too much adversity, but you want a knockout puncher to go in there against somebody that's never been knocked out. And I thought that was, interesting, because you have to see where the fighter's confidence is at and where their own kind of, mettle is, so that part, watching him go to rounds, and I'm like, all right, he knocked him down. Okay, cool. He got some real power.
And I mean, listen, he weathered through some, some. I don't want to say he was all the way in trouble, but Wok was landing some punches, some jabs too during the fight. So, what do you think is the future? Moving forward in terms of for the Lion.
He's going to need a lot more experience, man. And I could just, like I said, I could name some heavyweights that it don't matter about they like Johnny Rice, who's twice beaten Michael Coffey. Michael Coffey Polite out of Brooklyn. I mean, again, let's see him in there against one of those guys. You know what I'm saying? Get a guy like Johnny Rice is going to try to outbox you. He don't care nothing about who you knocked out, none of that. He's been in there sparring with Fury. You know what I'm saying? Otto Wallin, you know what I'm saying? From I think he's from Sweden. He went life or death with Fury, except for, well, Fury had that cut. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's the Christian Hammers of the world. It's a lot of heavyweights out there, Martin Bacoli, you know what I'm saying? A lot of heavyweights out there that he could fight, and we could really see where he's at. And then, before we even put him at the heavyweight championship level, you know what I'm saying? He'd have to face a Derek Chisora.
Okay.
You have to. If he can't beat Derek Chisora, he ain't who we think, you know what I'm saying?
He ain't ready.
He ain't ready. Derek, man, they got a rumor out there now. Derek Chisora might be lining up to fight Huey Fury, the cousin of Tyson and them. You know what I'm saying? Because again, he been around. Huey been around, but he's stepping up in competition. But this, you know what I'm saying? This ain't it. If he ain't ready, this ain't it. So you can tell right away, if Huey Fury doesn't get Chisora, they don't think he's ready. But the Lion, he's got Wok on his resume. Maybe he gets a Martin Bacoli, or a what's my guy name, a Larity, or was I think Richard Larity, right? Or if it's not, try on that Derek Chisora shoot for size.
All right. All right. So, all right. So we're gonna have to look out for that, man. So, listen, before we kind of do our recap, we're gonna talk about a couple of upcoming fights. Um, so listen, we got a Showtime fight coming up. Chris Colbert, 16-0, 6 KOs versus Hector Garcia, former Olympian out of the DR, 14-0, 10 KOs. This fight, I guess Roger Gutierrez had pulled out because he tested positive for COVID. So are you excited about this fight? What are you expecting to see? And if you want to pick somebody, of course you could do that.
Very excited about this fight. And truthfully, the Gutierrez fight was going to be tough enough.
Okay.
They said the Dominican guy's got a left hook. We're going to have to see. Respectfully, Dominican fighters, they don't always pan out well, man. They don't always pan out well. And it's not because they don't have the skill. It's because of the lifestyle, the fighting lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? The minute they get a little bit, everybody's after them. And, it's kind of hard to move around. So a lot of Dominican fighters, they haven't been able to shine, or sometimes they get caught up in the trappings. You know what I'm saying? So I'll just say that legitimately, this guy's going to have to be A1 from day one against Chris Colbert, because Colbert is trying to make an impression. He still might have I'm sure he has to fight with Gutierrez because I think there's a belt they're trying to unify. No, matter of fact, Gutierrez is a former champion. Either way, Chris Colbert is one of those fighters you want to see because he talk a lot of talk that you want to hear, the confidence, and he'll give a prediction. He tell you he's gonna whoop somebody's ass. Him and Shakur, they had their fair exchange, even though they got a respectful, friendly relationship, from what I understand. But that's gonna be a good fight. I would definitely check that one out. I gotta go with Colbert because again, I don't know enough about this Dominican guy, but underdogs, late replacements, they can be tricky. So I hope Chris ain't take his eye off the prize, knowing that he's in there with a replacement, because that can be dangerous.
All right. Last upcoming fight that we're going to talk about today, Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall.
Yep.
Josh Taylor, undisputed junior welterweight champion, 18-0, 13 KOs out of Scotland. Jack Catterall, El Gato, 26-0, 13 KOs. So this is going to be a late February fight. Oh, this is coming up. This weekend, right?
Yes, sir.
ESPN. So are you interested in this fight? And what does each fighter kind of have to do to win?
Well, here's what you got, man, with Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor, he's the undisputed champion at 140. Now, remember that recent lineage of undisputeds at 140. You're talking about Zab Judah, Amir Khan, Danny Garcia, Bud Crawford, and now Josh Taylor. Right. All them guys is Hall of Famers, no matter what you think of them. Amir Khan, I still got to, you can't take nothing away from him. You know what I'm saying? No matter what you think he did at 147. Now, what does that mean to Josh Taylor? He's got a long reign at 140 if he wants it. And I say he should enjoy that. Defend that undisputed title as many times as you can, because that water's deep at 147, right? And the power and things don't always travel. So remember, of those names that I mentioned, because this is what happens at 140, right? I said Zab Judah, Amir Khan, Danny Garcia, and Bud Crawford, right? Yeah. Out of those guys, truthfully, the only one that's had a respectable career or continued that Hall of Fame progression is Bud Crawford. So Zab Judah, he again 147, you know what I'm saying? 140, he was ill, you know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, he might have jumped up and clipped the undisputeds at 154 from Corey Spinks on some sneaky shit. But it's a rare class of fighters that can be undisputed and defend those belts, and so he's already in that rare class. Catterall, shit, man, he gonna have to surprise the fuck out of me and everybody else to win. I know that much, because Josh Taylor's strong. He can box his ass off. Listen, he reminds me a lot like, Blue Eye Soul, man. He's a white brethren, but he fights slick. He got movement, his head movement. He got, you know what I mean? Like he's no joke. The Joe Calzaghes and you know the smooth, even like a George Groves. I know you don't know these guys, but he's got that slick athletic style. He ain't no square rock'em sock'em UK dude. That's for sure, bro.
All right. We're excited about that fight. See how that turns out. All right, as we always do, you know, we kind of do something different before we get out of here. So we're gonna do like kind of a recap of some, you know, selected fighters that you've kind of chosen, and just kind of talk about how and why, you know, a fighter can make a lasting impression on the sport.
For sure, man. So some of the fighters, you know, I've chosen to some what are some obscure names like the Dwight Muhammad Kwawi and James Scott and Ruben Carter. And half of that's because they're from Jersey, but the other part is, you know, the resiliency of their backgrounds. Those three individuals alone started their boxing careers while incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? Um, you know, but then I've also mentioned guys, you know, current, you know, fighters, you know, or more recent fighters like, you know, Mike Tyson, of course, you know, I mentioned
Right.
Lennox Lewis, of course. I mentioned Larry Holmes. I mentioned tons of fighters. And see, the one thing about that they all have in common, despite the divisions, is they captured a moment within the sport. All these fighters captured the moment. So even though you might lump in, like I said, the fighters that were incarcerated, not just their resiliency, their character, but they'll go down in history for what they brought as far as, you know, some of them were not Hurricane Reuben Carter, but you know, those other guys, Scott and Kwawi, they had fights broadcasted live on HBO with fucking Jim Lampley and Richard Murray. And by the way, and what's my man's name? I don't forgot his name, but he's Eddie Mustafa, right? He fought on that card against James Scott. So it's just a legacy to establish, and it's such an intersection on how life, resiliency, and boxing, like, you know, it's just a cool moment. You look at Mike
Now,
Tyson. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
James, the one that we was talking about with the program, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good story. That was a good story.
Yeah, man. And Bernard Hopkins, you know what I'm saying? He came out of a similar type system in Pennsylvania. You know what I'm saying? We know about Mike Tyson in this story, Lennox Lewis, you know what I'm saying? These guys were not just, you know, and I'm talking just about the resiliency they face in the moments that they captured. Lennox Lewis carried the heavyweight division after Mike Tyson when people thought Mike Tyson was still the most dangerous man, then turn around and done him out too.
Right.
You know, so you can't forget it. You know, some people they skip and fast forward to the Klitschko's, but it was Lennox Lewis that held that moment. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you don't appreciate shit until they gone. I feel like the same thing with Sean Porter. You know, his career is really going to be respected. Even now, you look at where Ugas is now. You got to remember him and me being physically present at that fight. Ugas Porter. And at the time, I'm like, yo, this is one of the ugliest, wildest fucking fights ever. But it's such a moment in history because that was the fight Ugas said, I can hang with the best of the division. I can hang with the rest of the welterweights. Put me in, coach, and look at where he's at now. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, fighting and being a fighter is about capturing your moment in that time in your mind and in your body and in space where you can, you know, you can really exert your aggression in a healthy way, but also capturing the moment of your audience. You know what I'm saying? So even if it's just yourself, right? Even if it's a, you know, a local boxing club, or even if it's you know, you're trying to get to the amateur levels, that's what it's all about. You have to capture a moment because you don't have that same fire burning forever, nor do you have the same physical capacity forever. So, you know, all these attributes will fade away. But if you leave a lasting legacy, you know, what a way to use your aggression and channel that to create a lasting, healthy legacy. So that's what that's about.
All right. Well, I think that's a good way to kind of cap off the show and the season. I'm gonna obviously we're gonna leave you with the last words, but you know, make sure you promote yourself before we get out of here.
Yo, first of all, before I do my little closing, I gotta thank everybody, whether it's 1 or 1,000. We appreciate the views, we appreciate the presence, appreciate the feedback. All the comments are very helpful. Definitely a lot of energy and time goes into this. So we definitely appreciate, you guys showing us some love. And one thing I gotta tell you, season 3, we're gonna continue to evolve. Um, yeah, so if you've been here with us this long from season 1 to now, cool. We appreciate you. If you just got with it, cool. But strap up because we're going for another ride. Season 3, it's going to be even more entertaining, deeper dives, featured guests, and a whole bunch of other shit. So always remember to check me out, King Amin of Essex 1 on Instagram. Don't forget to check me out on the Boxing Voice TVV podcast. Also on Twitter, King Amin of Essex or King Amin One. You'll find me. I'm not hard to find, and once you do, you'll never lose me.
All right, my brother.
So I'm gonna end us out.
All right, bro. Till next time. All right.
All right, peace.
Later.